moving forward, this next session is about new models for grid infrastructure. The speakers will be discussing planning wind, solar, I'll put a comma in there. The speakers will be discussing planning wind, solar, transmission, and storage to balance cost, reliability, and decarbonization. Let's give a warm welcome to the stage our panelists, Julien Cristiani, General Partner at SE Ventures, Jutta Wuebken, Director at Stifel, Jørgen Festervoll, CEO at Heimdall Power, Bartosz Kowalczyk, Technology Leader for Grid Digitalization and AI at ConnectPoint, and our moderator for this session. Welcome to the stage, Andrew Beebe, Managing Director at Obvious Ventures. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, everybody, late in the day, and we're going to talk about grid complexity. We're going to try to keep it very spicy here. We have a really fun panel. I'm going to ask each of them to do a brief introduction so you understand why they are here on this stage. And I also want to note that we will have time for questions at the end. So please, if you've got burning questions about dynamic line rating and sagging power lines and the future of a distributed grid, get ready. So I'll just go straight down the line here. A couple of words about the work that you're doing. Bartosz.
Hello, my name is Bartosz. I'm representing ConnectPoint. In ConnectPoint, I'm dealing with grid digitalization, AI technologies, and stuff for utilities.
Great.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. My name is Jørgen Festervoll. I'm the CEO of Heimdall Power. We're a grid-enhancing technology company providing sensors and software for utilities to provide situational awareness of the grid, and one of the outcomes of that using dynamic line rating is to squeeze more capacity out of the existing grid.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Jutta Wuebken. I'm a director at Stifel. Stifel is a US listed investment bank, but very active in Europe. We help companies raise money or also help in M&A situations. Why am I here? Every time I decide to work with a company, I actually have to assess their business model and the viability for investors.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. I'm Julien Cristiani, General Partner at SE Venture. We invest in energy and also in industrial tech companies, and we're backed by Schneider Electric.
Okay, great. Let's just dive right in. So the grid was built for centralized power flowing in one direction, and it's become much more dynamic over the last couple of decades. So maybe, Jutta, we could start with you from a top-down. You probably also work with a lot of utilities, and when they're looking at the grid, when the broad market is looking at the grid, do they think of it as completely broken and needing to be replaced, or something that can actually sort of be redesigned as we continue to scale it?
Yeah, great question. I don't think the grid is broken or flawed, but I do think it's badly managed. You have said the grid was built for one-directional flows. Now we are adding EVs, heat pumps, solar installations. Just today I learned in Germany we have the first case of bidirectional charging from BMW. So we're adding this. At the end of the day, we just have to invest more, and we need more innovation into the grid to basically keep it stable and keep it running.
Does anybody think we should just be starting over again, or is there something sort of fundamental about keeping things the way they are? I mean, you talk about what you're doing, because you are, in fact, sort of trying to make things bidirectional. You can make things happen in weeks instead of years, but it's still sort of a slow implementation of even that kind of technology.
Yes, but I would like to echo, I don't think it's fundamentally broken. It was brilliantly engineered to do exactly what it was designed to do, which was centralized, one power, one flow, directional, and all of that. The challenge is, of course, we're now serving a 21st century energy system, and it's not designed for that. So I would say it's simply under-digitalized, under-observed, and under-optimized, and that's what we do. And when it comes to the implementation, I don't think it has nothing to do with technology. we can get sensors and software up and running in days and weeks, integrated into your OT safely in a matter of a couple of days is what it typically takes for a utility. It's the 1,000-page IT security questionnaire that you need to do. It's the internal processes and the inertia of the utility. That is where the time. So I typically give an example of a US utility. In order for us to do a project with them, they need to give us line data. In order to get that, we need to sign an NDA. It took us 15 minutes to sign, and it was their NDA, no changes. It took them 4 months to do it.
The data.
In 4 months, we can produce 1,000 sensors, put them up, implement it into their SCADA, train their operators, and have a hell of a kick-up party in 4 months, right? That's the time they spend on just signing their own NDA. So that's the inertia. I think that's the slowness of the
Anyone else want to comment on why this is taking so long? I mean, is it just regulation? Is it politics? Is it technology? Bartosz?
I think yes, because utilities are, in most cases, critical systems, and they cannot base on some sort of new technologies, untested technologies. Those aren't the green fields, right? Those are brown fields. In many cases, with software from past millennia, from 90s, for example, and you, as a utility, you cannot just throw it away and implement something brand new. This is impossible. Nobody does that. And this is why such decisions take so long. This is one of the biggest factors there.
Yeah. Julien, SE Ventures has been investing in grid technology for 15 plus years. Mm-hmm. So you have a unique perspective here. What kind of failure rates should we expect, or what have we learned from the last 15 years of failure rates of these startups? We have great pitches at conferences, but how many of them make it all the way to implementation and then ultimately to becoming large companies in their own right?
So, I mean, I would echo what has been said. It's not an easy market. The utilities are slow to decide, slow to implement. But I think they're realizing now that they have to act. So there is a lot of investment to do, a lot of business to do, even with utilities. They need to design, they need to plan, they need to maintain, they need to improve. As of today, they need to take care of disaster management, and that's their core business. I think that when we talk about grid market, there is not just utilities, actually. There are residential, like us. There is commercial buildings. There is electro-intensive business, such as the data centers. There are IPPs and generators. So it's not just DSOs and TSOs in a way. So it's very big. And we believe that in the change that is happening, in the revolution that's happening in the grid market, there's many opportunities, not just with the utilities themselves. At SE Venture, we have invested in several sectors. We have invested in disaster management, AI Dash, and I'm thinking on top of my head, right? We invested in new energy retailer, Ostrom, invested in developers in Sweden with Repono. I invested in data center for Flex with Hammerhead in the US. So we have done a lot of investments. I think, again, there's many business opportunities. It's not easy. A lot of money has been put.
Are you seeing adoption for all of those companies be stronger these days, on average, stronger than they were 15 years ago? In other words, is there just sort of more of an interest on the customer front, commercial, residential, utility scale, to take these technologies in faster, or is it sort of business as usual?
No, there's clearly an acceleration. A lot of money has been put in residential. More than half of the money has been put in residential. We're talking maybe 7-8 billion per year, and we don't have 7 or 8 unicorns. So That's accelerating in terms of amount. Still have to see successful startups. We see strong acceleration in the IPP world, for sure. In the data center, a lot of startups are being created in 25 and 26, focusing on data center flex. So there's strong dynamics, but we need to be careful where we invest. For example, CNI, the commercial and the industrial aspect, is still challenging because the savings for a building doesn't represent that much.
You know, 5 years ago,
Yet.
I was talking to some of our hyperscaler friends, and I'll just make a statement about the US, and I know it's fairly true in Europe, but different in other parts of the world. We went from basically flat load growth in the US for about a 20-year period to what is now forecast to be possibly a doubling of that grid and possibly something similar here as electrification continues. And the observation I had talking to the hyperscalers was these utility partners of ours just can't get it done because they have to cycle out an entire group of executives. You know, they really have to sort of turn over culturally to get back into a growth mindset. Instead of working from a fear of letting down customers and not having safe, affordable, available power, but to sort of a greed mode of just, wow, this is a huge opportunity to scale. So maybe for the group, like, Jutta, do you think that this industry is going to be able to handle this next wave of scale, or are we going to always be under the target growth that we all expect?
I mean, if we talk about scale, about where capital flows, I think that's one question. If we talk about scale, whether that's possible from a utility perspective, I do think it is, actually. I do think it is. Utilities still get remunerated on CapEx, don't forget. It's a regulated asset. And there will be built out, there is a build out, there is something that we call a grid super cycle, so that investment is also flying or going into the grid. So I'm very positive about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that first of all, I think the change has happened in the past 12 to 24 months. So it's not like 15 years. It's massively changed their willingness to do this. I think the CEOs and the C-suites of the investor-owned utilities really see this. Just look at Duke Energy. They're spending $1 billion a month, and they're going to do this for the next 5 years. Now, when you talk to the CFO of Duke Energy and spending $1 billion, his problem is not, for example, when I tried to sell him dynamic line rating, which may defer or eliminate some investments, it's not a threat to him anymore because he has more investments than he can build. So he's thinking about our technology as his tool for efficient capital allocation. So it's how do I have more projects, I don't have enough capital, how can I deploy it the most efficiently? And even to be allowed to rate base a lot of this, you need to show the willingness to squeeze out the last drop of the existing grid. So suddenly we're their friends, and I think from that point, once they pass their engineers and the security layers and all of that, money is not, like scaling this will go very, very fast, I believe.
That's very interesting. So that's sort of an unlock because in the past, as you were saying, they are compensated based on their asset base. And so selling something that doesn't require an increase in the asset base, in fact, saves a lot of future investment, is not that appealing to them. But if they have an unlimited number of opportunities and they're just ranking them, if you can give them more power meanwhile while they're doing all the build out they want to do, you suddenly become a friend, not a foe.
Yes, and also a lot of utility CEOs are on the front page called idiots in the media. Now, they could put our technology on the media budget. That's how cheap it is, right? Just to avoid being called idiots for not squeezing out the last drops. So I think this is also the pressure from politicians, from rates going up. It's just not acceptable anymore. You have to do everything. And I think it's important to, we're going to build as much as we can, but there's just not enough people, not enough capital, not enough, the waiting for a substation could be 5 years now. So you're just not going to be able to do it unless you use more digital technologies. And that's what they're realizing. And I think they're moving much faster now than they did only 24 months ago.
Bartosz, you sort of sit in the messy middle, deep in the weeds of helping build out this distributed grid. I think a lot of founders in the room are excited to build very sexy new technologies, and sometimes the executives at the energy companies are transfixed by those technologies too. So how have you, maybe you could talk a little bit about what you've done in the grid and how you've scaled it successfully as other founders are trying to figure out how to follow in your footsteps?
Thanks for this question. It's quite interesting because, as I already said, in utilities there are no green fields. Yeah, the pylons, the high voltage cables, all of this infrastructure is there. It's robust, it's very solid. You cannot argue with that. But then you go lower to the transformer stations, and this is actually the spot where theirs are connected, like photovoltaics farm, wind farms, non-conventional energy sources are there. And in most cases, we don't know what is happening there. This is the place where the outages are happening, blackouts and other problems are not in high voltage area. They are in low voltage area. One of our customer is dealing with problem like that. This is actually the second part. With problem like that. Okay, we have huge amount of battery storage, but we build it over the years. We have those batteries from different vendors, and right now our operators are sitting in front of multiple SCADA systems unable to steer the whole portfolio of our flexibility capacity. And right now, how to deal with that? How to deal with that? So in ConnectPoint, we are developing the concept of a single central SCADA system for all those renewable assets. So you can arrange it as your asset inside your energy portfolio.
You say that's for commercial customers and utility customers, or?
For utility customers.
For utility customers.
And this cycles back to the original topic. We don't have greenfields. Yeah? So it is always a project. You cannot prepare in your own basement very fancy product and then advertise it. Okay, listen, utilities, this is the product which is solving all your problems. Such product doesn't exist. Why? Because each utility has its own original and unique difficulties, systems, legacy systems in most cases, and without a partner who is able to sit down together in front of the table, look at all those systems, protocols, data, streams, and everything, and assemble the whole project from scratch, and then building the system which fits their need, because the primary goal is to sell satisfaction, customer satisfaction.
In a lot of panels today, I've heard people talking about the interconnection queues, which around the world seem challenged, and many people have said this is not a technology problem, this is not a financing problem, it's really a problem with interconnections being tied up and slow, bottlenecked. So is that true? Is that such a big problem? And then if so, what are the potential solutions? And can we innovate our way out or finance our way out of that challenge? Jutta, you want to share a thought?
Maybe whether we can finance our way out of that challenge is really the question of the energy transition. Is there actually real financing going into it, or is it more a narrative, right? And what I see from my perspective is you still have financing being real in energy transition where it improves the unit economics. And that's in the grid, in the electrification. That's what you do, right? You make existing technology better or cheaper, and this is why it is also adopted. It's very much a narrative saw, in my opinion, where it destroys your unit economics, and that's often in hard-to-abate sectors, like the very high temperature heat sectors, steel, cement, etc. And I said at the beginning of my introduction, as an investment banker, I always have to judge the companies I'm working with. And my working hypothesis is always that no one pays for a green premium and no one wants to invest very long into the future. So having this as a working thesis also tells you where the money is flowing. So if you have very hard to abate sectors, it's not impossible, but if you're structurally more expensive than your competitors, you will simply lose. This is why we have, great companies like Kraftblock, who is here, that are generating very high temperature heat applications, or Stekra financing. Stekra just announced a 1.4 billion financing round for green steel. So it is there, but it's much harder to get financed. Whereas, like other assets, like the grid electrification, the EVs, the heat pumps, the bidirectional charging I mentioned, those are really the fields where I see capital flowing.
Go ahead.
No, I think the interconnection queues are, of course, they're for real, right? There's 3,000 gigawatts of renewables wanting to connect. There's the hyperscalers knocking down. I mean, if the green developers and the hyperscalers were my customers, I would now own an island, right? There is no lack of...
But are any of them offering to subsidize
Absolutely.
your work?
I can go to Google, they will pay for my sensors and the subscription, and they will just get it done. The problem is you need to be allowed by the utility to actually put it on. And then in order to do that, you need to get through the whole... So it actually doesn't speed things up. But I do think that, obviously, when Google comes and they say, we want 300 megawatts in 12 months, and the utility says, not 12 months, 12 years.
Yeah.
That bridge needs to be, there needs to be a bridge between those two realities, and that is flexibility, digitalization, and those two can actually get you quite far.
So Julien, in addition to these super cool technologies represented on the stage, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of pitches lately about, in fact, just next door during a pitch competition, about AI to help with siting of new power stations, and part of that is gaming or really deeply understanding the interconnection queue. Yes. Are you seeing a lot of technology solutions that could bring that queue down in size?
So, yes, I mean, I think you're referring to Initio, right? This is the ones that we just saw. Just a thought before that is, when we talk about interconnection, so utilities being slow, so CapEx not being deployed, that's why we're here. If the utilities will put tons of money, we would not be here, because there will be no business opportunities. We are trying to solve the issue of the utilities because they don't have enough money, they are too slow. So yes, I agree, it's a conservative business, but it's thanks to that we are creating business opportunities. So on the interconnection, same thing. Very slow, and therefore you have new businesses being created out of it. The case of Initio is not finding the best place, the ideal place, but where it makes sense to get enough power to connect. When you have all the behind-the-meter business being created for the data centers, is because of the interconnection. When you have, I would say, inference optimization for data center, is to go from a 30% usage from the data center to an 80% by selling lower, cheaper price with more latency. So it's a business by itself. So yes, we see a lot. The trick, I think, is to have a vision of what will remain a bottleneck, how to create a business that will unlock it, but with fast adoption than the whole market is.
And do you think some of
It
those...
is not easy.
But can they be venture scale, returnable, multi-billion-dollar companies, or are these things that are going to get picked up by the utilities or rolled into these types of companies?
No, I think there is, right? We all know Octopus. It's a success story. We know the NPAL and 1.5, even if they started from an installer perspective, they are doing the full procurement journey now, going by being a VPP provider and selling electricity. We see here, there's Flower, for example, and we have not invested in Flower, and the same as Inicio, but those are successful stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I think it's possible.
Let's talk about storage, and I'm going to ask a couple more questions and then open it up to the audience, so get your questions ready. Storage is a hot topic. It's heavily invested, and Bartosz, maybe I'll start with you. It is, the ultimate edge asset in many ways. I used to say that a solar panel is like a spoon. It's a very single-purpose thing, but a battery, a lithium-ion battery, is like a Swiss Army knife. It can do a lot of different things. So I think that's appealing to us investors, but it's location-driven. It can sometimes be politically complicated. Is storage really the answer that everybody expects it to be, or is it sort of overinvested, and we should be putting more money into software and edge management?
Very important aspect we are touching here, Andrew. Thanks. Storage is a device, and this device is quite complex from technical perspective. It's very expensive, and building such stuff is not always easy to do task, especially if you are planning to deploy, mega gigawatts of storage. Better approach would be to have this dispersed, geographically dispersed, and deal with so-called flexibility. So you will be able to, and actually this will open new branch of the market with the flexibility trading, right? You will not stick to the single price per hour, per day, per weekend, per whatever.
It's more dynamic.
It will be much more dynamic.
Yeah.
Here you will be able to have a 1 minute price, for example, in the future. So battery storage, yes, but with fancy software, which is able to control it and which is actually enabling the flexibility.
So it's a little bit of a both.
Yes,
your answer
a little
is
bit
both.
of a both.
Jørgen, what do you think?
Both and we're absolutely not over-invested. I mean, we're just getting started. I'm not saying, like with AI, there are going to be companies that go bankrupt and they were over-invested, but as a technology, absolutely not. We're just at the starting point. Where I think that, none of us are going to be the solution. Even your parent company is not going to be able to, the Googles, the Microsofts, the Schneiders of the world is not going to solve this alone. It's an ecosystem of solutions, and we all need, and that's where I think we're lacking right now, is kind of this interoperability and the way to make flexibility. I mean, dynamic line rating will tell you that the line isn't static, and then what can that tell you about what you need on the line tomorrow? If we could give that to the hyperscalers, when they look at their flexibility, that's much cheaper for them to deliver something that they know 24 hours in advance what that flexibility is. So I think it's the combination of all of these technologies. That's when you get the multiples. So 1 + 1 isn't 2, it's 6, right, or 8. And I think we're not there yet. And I think the utilities need to trust that. They need to trust that the flexibility is actually there, because we cannot do the old kind of planning where a power line should cover 8,760 ours in any scenario. No, that's not how we build. It's a combination of different assets, even those not owned by the utility, and they need to operate as one platform. So it's not so much a capacity problem anymore, it's a visibility and orchestration problem, and that's what we're looking at now.
Overinvested, underinvested on storage? Maybe we could say early and later stage, just to sort of think it through.
So I would say that the battery, we initially thought that was the solution for intermittent energy. We'll store everything and we'll go back to the previous world, right? It's not the case today because it's under-invested and there is a reason. It's super expensive. I think now it's just a tool on your Swiss knife, along with selling to the market, doing PPAs, or helping the TSO with ancillary services. It's just a tool. We live in a world where the price is dynamic and it will not change. That's how I see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree. So even on a later stage level, it's not overinvested. It's also very specific to the country, we have to say, because UK might be overinvested when it comes to BESS solutions, but Germany certainly isn't, or it hasn't been up until like a few months when we said that we don't have any grid connections anymore. But yeah, so it's very country specific, but still lots of interest into this asset class up until we have a more efficient solution.
Okay. Questions from the audience. If anyone had one, you could just shout it out and I can repeat it. All of your questions have been answered already. Okay. All right, well, I have one sort of lightning round question. You have the opportunity to answer this with only one, so just think of it, even if you want to say it's all three, you have to pick your top one. I didn't tell the panelists about this question, so this is a little bit of a surprise, but we're going to try to predict the future, okay? So you have three choices of the thing that will have the single biggest impact on unlocking the grid and allowing it to scale. Your three options, very broad, are a technology, you don't have to say which one, but is it going to come from technology, policy change, or business model innovation? So technology, business model, or policy change, which one is going to have the biggest impact on allowing us to scale the next wave of energy transition? Who wants to venture a...
Yes, I mean, I can start. It will not be the biggest, but I like it because I'm a geek. It's a bidirectional charger.
Oh, okay.
So it's a technology, and I just like it.
Okay, so bidirectional chargers for vehicles, you think that's the biggest unlock for making a better scalable grid?
For residential flex, yes.
Okay, all right. That was more specific than I was expecting, but thank you.
Same. I also love the bidirectional charging.
Yes, I love it.
But I add the microgrids.
Okay.
Which is maybe in between technology and policy.
What is a microgrid? Because in the U.S., Google's talking about macro microgrids where they do gigawatts behind, off grid, literally.
No, microgrids I refer to like energy communities, where you have like your houses or like a village being connected and also being self-sufficient if it has to be.
So that includes a lot of energy storage, presumably.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great. Now you were not the technologist, so now we're going to turn to the technologists and see if they say it's
Who's
technology.
Not,
you can't name your own technology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, then I don't know. So I think I think the technologies are already there. So I'll give a sub-segment of that. I think it's deploying the technology, which is lacking, and it's orchestrating the technology. That is where the missing. We already have it, tweaks we can do it to it. It's already there, but it's really deploying it at scale and then orchestrating it. That's going to have the biggest effect.
Okay. So would you call that policy change or business model change?
I think it's still technology, standards. I don't. Yeah, maybe that's
policy is
more,
the wrong word, but like regulatory. Regulatory change.
I don't like to call regulatory because I don't like to put my faith in other people's hand. I think we as an industry can do it without. Even if the regulators doesn't do anything, this is still going to happen because it's a necessity. But there is like a regulatory in the sense that you make a standard or you try to make it interoperable interoperability, that needs to be somebody who does that, sure. But it's in the tech space that this is going to be solved. But not necessarily we're missing a technology, but it's the orchestration and how we standardize it and deploy it at scale.
Okay. Bartosz.
Totally agree. Totally agree with previous answers. Technology, and bigger understanding of the technology. Understanding that utilities need to shift from safe perspective that, okay, if I'm missing the power, then I'm running my coal chambers, I'm buying 500 trunks of coal to run the turbines. Batteries are not ready for that because I need what I need. I need either wind, either solar to charge them up. So yeah, change in perspective, change in understanding.
Super helpful. Okay, we do have a question. Yes, sir.
Hi, I was very curious to hear about bidirectional charging. So I'm in the UK, and they think by 2030, a lot of distributed storage assets are going to be coming in and actually removing the need for more grid-scale storage. But some of the people I'm speaking to have been talking about the challenges in that space. To do bidirectional charging, especially, I think you said residential, you've got your car manufacturer, you've got your charger operator, you've got your consumer, you've got your aggregator, and then you've got the grid. So you've got 5 different actors in there, and you also got a lot of them trying to take a small piece of what isn't very high. I've got a 75 kilowatt hour Tesla at home, and I imagine maybe 15 to 20 pound capacity if I leave it there connected to the grid. What do you think is going to help solve for that, so that this all has to come together?
Do you want to start?
Julien, go.
Oh, okay. Yes, I mean, I think it's not working in a large scale right now because of what you're describing. Everyone is trying to get a pilot. The solution, I would think, will come from the car OEM, who will allow to open it. It's not a technology issue, it's a decision that needs to be taken by the car OEM, and some are doing it. You were mentioning BMW. We have some also in France which are opening it as well, so I think it's on the way. But yes, it's a business model issue in a way, yeah.
I'll just offer my own, take some license and offer my own answer and take a lot of license and give a different one than the 3 options that I offered. I think that we have a people challenge, and people can be a big part of the solution, and that comes from some of what I mentioned earlier of utility executive changeover, where we have a next generation who is excited about embracing, not just excited, but sort of knows how to embrace this new technology. And I think with the advent of, or the introduction of modern AI, that's even more true than it was in the past. I also think that it's a people challenge and that we need great founders like the ones on this stage and people in the audience who are leading the way through this energy transition. And I really think that if people drive deeply in that way, we're going to find the solutions, whether they're policy, regulatory policy, technology, or markets. So thank you very much, Julien, Jutta, Jørgen, Bartosz. Thank you so much for your comments. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I wanted a selfie.
Huh? Oh, yes.